Hello again, my culinary friends, and welcome to another edition of Papa Bojo's Kitchen. Today I'm going to do baked kibbed, and this is something that's very near and dear to our hearts. It's part of my wife's Middle Eastern heritage. She's Chaldean, and she normally makes this stuff, but I'm going to make it. And there's two primary components. There's the dough that you make that makes the outside or the top and the bottom, and then there's the filling. Okay, so for the dough, what I've got 3 cups of fine wheat that I soaked in water for 30 minutes, and then you squeeze out all the water. I've got 2 pounds of ground beef. Typically they use lamb. My wife doesn't like lamb, so we use ground beef. You can use a mixture of ground beef and lamb, or you can also use ground chicken if you want as well. And then I've got 2 tablespoons of salt. I've got 1.5 teaspoons of pepper and 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. That's it, that's in this dough. What we're going to do is we're going to put it in the food processor. We're going to use the sharp blade to mix it around, and then it should knead it as well. If not, then we'll knead it by hand, okay? So now for making the dough, what we're going to do is we're going to mix half of this mixture. I'm only putting half in because my food processor isn't that big. So I've got the wheat. I'm taking about half of that. I'm putting this in the food processor. And I'm going to take and I'm going to break up, and I'm going to put 1 pound of the hamburger in here. And then I'm going to process this until it comes together and it's smooth. Now that I've got it looking like this, now I'm going to add half of the seasoning because, don't forget, I'm only using half the ingredients. And we're going to be combining all this together and kneading by hand anyways, so it won't make much of a difference. And we process again until all of the seasoning is all mixed together. Now it's just about complete. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop it. And you can see how it's a nice dough mixture like this. And we're going to remove this, and then we're going to do the other half batch. And then we're going to mix all these together and knead it for just a couple of minutes. So now we have this nice dough mixed with the seasoning and the ground beef and the cracked wheat in the food processor. So we're going to take this out with one big thing here, and we're just going to knead it just a little bit, just to make sure that everything is all mixed. And I'm kneading it, but I'm just giving it a visual. And right now it looks perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dough now, I'm going to stick it on a plate or stick it in something, and then you're going to put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. So making the filling, what you're going to use, you're going to need about a pound of ground beef. You're going to need 1 onion, diced, not too fine, because we want to taste that onion. You're going to have 3 tablespoons of butter that's melting in the frying pan, and I'm getting that going right now. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and that's right in here. Teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, 2 teaspoons of baharat. And what that is, that's an Arabic allspice. And then you need 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of cumin. So we're going to get this going. And when this is all done, it'll have to cool, so it'll be finished and cooled by the time we need to take the kibbed out of the refrigerator. Once the butter's melted, you're going to add the diced onion. And again, that's 1 full onion. And mix that around. And you're going to add your 1/2 cup of pine nuts. You're going to want to reserve maybe about 15 or 20 pieces of the pine nuts. just for part of the presentation when you make the Kibbed tray. So you're going to cook this until these pine nuts are toasted and these onions are nice and translucent, almost completely cooked. So now you can see the onions are fairly translucent, and we've got those pine nuts that are starting to get a nice brown on them. So now's the time to add the ground beef. We're going to break the ground beef up in here, and we're going to break it up and stir it around a bit. Mix all this in here. And once we get this mixed, then we're going to add all of our seasonings that we mentioned before. So I'm going to add all these in, sprinkle them all about. All that in there. And we're going to stir this, incorporate all them seasonings into this mixture. And we're going to continue on doing this until this hamburger meat, or if you're using lamb or chicken, until it's fully cooked. So now you can see all of this hamburger meat, all the beef is all nice and brown. The onions are all cooked. I'm going to show you a little hack, okay? With this, whenever you're using any burger, there's always like some oil, and maybe too much, that settles. So it can be sort of crazy to try to get that out by spooning it. So what you do is you take a paper towel, and you take a pair of tongs, and all you need to do is just take this paper towel and soak it in. If one's not enough, then you can do a second one. But you want to get rid of as much of that oil as possible. The next step that we have, while we're waiting for the ground beef mixture to cool and the dough to cool off in the refrigerator, is we're going to take and line a cooking dish like this with some olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. And that's all you need to do with paper towel. You get this ready. Leave the paper towel in here, because right before you start adding the dough mixture, you're going to want to run over this one more time. So now we're just about ready to take this dough and put it in this lightly oiled tray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of this dough here. I'm going to take half of it. I'm going to press it down into this plate. And you want to make it as even as you can, but it doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, I've smoothed this all out using my hands, and you want to take and make a ridge all the way around. So it's sort of like a bit of a shell, okay? Sorry about all that noise. Once you have that, then you're going to take your hamburger mixture, and you're going to pour all of this in here. Because you want a nice thick coating of this meat. So when you get your piece, you got some nice flavor going on there. So, and that's it. And then take your hands and push it down. Again, sorry for the noise, but that's this glass going against this granite countertop. So, now that I've got this going, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to break off pieces of this, and we're going to flatten them out, and we're going to lay them down. Okay? This way we don't disturb any of the meat, the ground beef that's going on there. And then we'll smooth it all out when it's done. Once I have the last few pieces closed out, and you can see, you can take some pieces, but you want everything closed out. Then you're going to press this down, and sorry for the noise, and you're going to wet your hands, and you're going to smooth this out. Take and make this nice and smooth. as smooth as you can. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to add a little design. You're going to cut and make lines, diagonal lines this way. And these are going to be about the sizes of the pieces that you're going to cut when it's all done. And you're going to come here and come all the way across, all the way across, all the way across. Remember, I told you to save some of those pine nuts. That's because you're going to take these pine nuts and stick a pine nut in the middle of each one of these squares. So I've got all the pine nuts that have been added to this, and I actually had more left over than I thought, so I put 2 in each one of these. So you can take a good look at this pie. I've got the stove preheated to 425 degrees, and we're going to stick that in the middle rack for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to take and put the broiler on for a total of about maybe 4 to 5 minutes, keeping an eye on it. But what we want is we want to get a nice crispness on the top of this. It's been about 40-45 minutes, somewhere around there, and another 4 minutes under the broiler, and we're ready to take the baked kibbe out of the oven. And there it is. Wonderful Middle Eastern Arabic baked kibbe. We're going to take and cut a piece here and plate it. And then we'll be ready to eat. Something you definitely have to try. I think we're going to take ourselves a nice corner here. A nice size 2 pieces of this. And if you got a spatula like this, it's probably the easiest way to get at least the first piece out. Oh my goodness. Look at this. Beautiful piece of kibbe. Go all the way around. That nice wheat and the spices. A lot of great stuff here. I hope you've enjoyed this session. I hope you'd enjoy the session of Papa Bojo's Kitchen. And I hope you'll join me again the next time I'm out. And bon appetito. Bye, everybody.